Although the 20th century has been labeled the century of women, the international landscape is uneven. The Santiago Declaration of 2015, issued after a UN Women meeting as part of the Beijing Plus 20 initiative, concluded that progress has been slow and irregular. If by 1990 there were 12 women chiefs of state or heading governments, by 2015 there were only 19. At this rate, it would take another 50 years to achieve equality. 8 out of every 10 Congress representatives in the world are still men. Women account only for 22% of the overall political participation. This is a pervasive phenomenon in modern states. In this lesson, we will deal with the following subjects: women and politics, female political citizenship, female presence in political institutions, female participation and international organizations, women at decision-making positions, current trends, and new problems. Regarding the hindrances preventing women from taking part in politics, a conservative account focuses on biological and psychological traits. Another, more progressive account points at education. Both deem that differences between men and women are either biological or acquired. The contemporary feminist movement challenges these accounts because they assume masculinity as the standard for normality, submitting instead that the problem lies on the functioning of politics as such. It questions the mainstream notion of the public sphere, which hinders female participation. Social organization imposes a sexual division of labor, thereby assigning social fields, even politics, to one sex or the other. The female sex undertakes the upbringing of new generations, whereas politics remains a male activity. The exclusive responsibility for reproduction and upbringing assigned to women hampers their participation in the political world. The foregoing sexual division of labor entails a deceptive acknowledgement of women's citizenship. Massive political participation, as well as the desire to pursue a political career or elite participation, both depend on unequally assigned resources, despite being universally proclaimed. Feminist theory holds that inequality of resources and the purported autonomy of politics vis-à-vis socioeconomic differences are obstacles for women to exert citizenship, including the possibility to run for office and pursue a career in politics. The inclusion of women in the political field is hindered both by double work hours and by segregation. This begs the question: how legitimate is a democracy that keeps half its population outside decision-making positions? Women express their interests through a plethora of civil and political organizations. However, taking part in decision-making at political bodies is crucial. Those decisions affect the whole of society and are binding. That is why a higher female participation in the electoral campaigns, as well as the promotion by women of women's rights, are permanent goals of female movements. In this level, political parties play a key role, since they are the main guardians of the candidates' appointing process. It has been said that there are 3 main grounds for justifying female presence in decision-making places: justice, usually related to the citizenship status; pragmatism, regarding rational calculations of the electoral competition; and difference, meaning the particular ingredients women would bring into the political sphere. A greater female participation in power entails, first, an example to other women. Second, a cultural change in the constituencies. Third, the construction of a critic mass. The presence of women in legislative bodies is an indicator of political equality. Special measures or affirmative action are a successful tool for including women in the political decision-making process. The absence of women in decision-making stations at the United Nations and at the Organization of American States is a matter of growing international concern. Some important landmarks are the following: the Convention on the Political Rights of Women, the Declaration on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, the World Conference of the International Women's Year, which proclaimed the United Nations Decade for Women, the Regional Conference on the Integration of Women into the Economic and Social Development of Latin America and the Caribbean, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or CEDAW, the Second World Conference of the United Nations Decade for Women, the Third World Conference of the United Nations Decade for Women, the Sixth Regional Conference on the Integration of Women into the Economic and Social Development of Latin America and the Caribbean, which approved a regional program of action, the Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing, which approved a point on women in the exercise of power and decision-making, as well as a platform for action, the World Interparliamentary Conference, which agreed on 30% quotas for women to access legislative positions, the Seventh Regional Conference on the Integration of Women into the Economic and Social Development of Latin America and the Caribbean, which approved the Santiago Consensus, setting forth affirmative action measures, CEDAW Optional Protocol, studied in a previous lesson, the Millennium Summit, establishing concrete goals, the 20th anniversary commemoration of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Differences between women and men become smaller. Therefore, this does not account for the relative absence of women in political decision-making bodies. Electoral systems for representative bodies are symptomatic of female participation in politics. Proportional systems favor the election of women, unlike majority first-past-the-post systems. And the bigger the district, the greater chance there is for women to get elected. But electoral systems, in and of themselves, are not decisive. Other relevant factors are the presence of special measures, the limitation of mandates, and electoral financing. Special measures have contributed to increase female presence in legislative branches. Quotas may consist of reserved seats, setting forth a number of female representatives to be elected, political parties' quotas, and legislative quotas, establishing a minimum of female presence in electoral lists. Quotas are used for guaranteeing a percentage of female candidates in primary elections, guaranteeing a percentage of female candidates in elections for public office, and for establishing a percentage of seats for women. There are women quotas and gender quotas depending on their demand for a minimum percentage of women or of each of the sexes. Their effectiveness depends on the size of the district, on how female candidates are placed in lists, and on the sanctions due to lack of compliance. 50% of states count with quotas in parliamentary elections. Argentina was the first Latin American country to adopt them in 1991. Since the 1980s, there have been important political reforms. After universal enfranchisement, many reforms in the last decades have aimed at securing for women the right to be chosen. Constitutional amendments, as well as reforms of electoral systems and financing mechanisms and new party regulations, have all favored political inclusion of women. The current trend is to enshrine both at the law and in practice the notion of democratic parity. France, Spain, and Chile have adopted political parity for national positions. So have several Latin American countries. Such breakthroughs have showed some nuances. First, there is more female participation in politics, but in subordinate positions, and equality is still far away. Political practice helps perpetuating a male bias in the exercise of power. Second, the greater presence of women in electoral lists has been accompanied by greater harassment and political violence against them. Thank you for watching this class. Please visit mooCchile.com and we cordially invite you to watch our next lesson.